I'm going to reveal something that I actually had the pleasure of working with Sharon before. And what can I say about Sharon Watson? She's been a trailblazing figure in the world of contemporary dance for over 3 decades. Trained at the London School of Contemporary Dance in the 1980s, Leeds-born Sharon emerged as one of the first female principal dancers at the renowned Phoenix Dance Theatre Company, the longest-standing contemporary dance company outside of London. From 1989 to 1997, Sharon excelled as a performer and choreographer at Phoenix in groundbreaking works such as Never Still, which you aren't. She became its artistic director in 2009, captivating audiences with her choreographic brilliance in pieces including Fast Lane and Windrush, Movement of the People, which we'll see a clip of shortly, which resonated worldwide. In 2017, she received the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts Companionship Award from Sir Paul McCartney. That could be misinterpreted, but in terms of companion, so you're touring with him. So in May 2020, Sharon became the 4th principal and CEO of the Northern School of Contemporary Dance, located in Chapeltown, streets away from where she grew up. In addition to works for theatre, Sharon has choreographed Ghost Peloton, the cultural highlight to the Tour de Yorkshire 2014, Frankenstein's Wedding live in Leeds and on the BBC, and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, a BBC 6-part series. As well as being a trustee of various arts organisations and institutions in the north of England, Sharon became a deputy lieutenant, that is a whole other conversation, of West Yorkshire in 2020, was granted an MBE in 2021 for services to dance. So welcome, Sharon.
Thank you.
So welcome to Brixton, Sharon. You were born, bred and live in Leeds, a city where over 70 languages are spoken, and you grew up in Chapeltown, which in many ways is reminiscent of Brixton, with its strong history of migration, community activism, creativity, dance and music, and also at the other side of the continuum, mischaracterization, police brutality and uprisings. So how has and does Chapeltown inspire you?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for the invitation, the opportunity to speak about me and my history. Chapeltown is quite an interesting space. I mean, I just took the walk from my hotel just now, and I could have been back in Chapeltown. There's a lot that people don't appreciate about the space and what it's capable of, what it has done. The beauty of the people, the beauty as a location, the beauty of the art, the fact that it has the only contemporary dance conservatoire outside of London, that's going to be 40 years old this year, has produced a community of itself, and people that have been there stay, and it just is such a rich tapestry of difference and inclusion. And that's kind of how I've always known Chapeltown. Nothing, it's my stomping ground, that's where I grew up, so I understand the dynamics and the migration that's happened. The school that I run is an old synagogue, and it's got, from the synagogue it has a new build around it, but the migration of the Jewish community, then it has the Asian community, and then it has the Caribbean. And there's residue of all of that history that sits there, and it's alive. It really is alive, and it speaks to us every day. So yeah, the contrast and the dynamics of a space really helps you to understand how you can educate within that space, how you can develop and grow. So I feel very nurtured.
And I'm going to come to this after we look at the clip, because it struck me that there's so much synchronicity in your life, your dance career, and we'll talk a bit more about that later on. Because who can say they're one of the leading contemporary dance schools on their doorstep, in their community they grew up in, and also the fact that we have such a institution and creative space in an area like Chapeltown, isn't it? I mean, that's no mean feat, really.
It really isn't, and I think so we've just applied as a school, as a higher education, to be degree awarding powers. Now, we've got a good chance of getting that. We'll find out about it. And I just said the vision I have for my community in Chapeltown It's that cap and gown. I don't. If you know Leeds Carnival, you'll know the street that the school is on. And the carnival passes my building every year, right past my front door. And actually, what I'm looking forward to is seeing the cap and gowns of the students walking from the Canters, which is the fish and chip shop on the corner, down into the school with live music and those students in their gowns. Chapeltown has never seen anything like that. Everything happens in the shiny buildings on the top of the hill at the universities. But actually, I'm taking control of that, and we will get there. I'm sure we will get there. And I'm looking forward to that moment. And actually, once we've achieved that, I will just say, okay. You know, my parents, my friends' parents, all of those that grew up in Chapeltown need to see that to know that actually it's achievable and what it contributes back to our society.
Beautifully put. You've chosen for us, because there's so many things we could look at, to view the trailer for Windrush Movement of the People, performed while you were at Phoenix in 2018. It retraces the journey of the first Caribbean migrants to the UK who arrived in Tilbury, Essex on the Empire Windrush. And Sanjoy Roy in The Guardian described it as a powerful portrayal of migrants recruited for economic and social reasons into a culturally hostile environment. And he adds, we cannot miss the connection with the present. So I was curious, before I asked you to say a bit more about it, was the show inspired by your parents? I know that your dad arrived first and he arrived a few years after Windrush, but I was just curious if that had
It's absolutely about my family. So my father arriving into the UK and then arriving into Leeds and leaving my mother with 5 children back in the Caribbean, and then sending for my mother, and not knowing my brothers and sisters for quite some time. There's 8 of us, by the way, and I'm number 7. So there was quite a journey to kind of getting all of the family back into the UK. And yeah, it was very much, that was the start of the conversation, that was the start of the work, and working with my mum on this piece as well. So
oh wow!
Yeah,
okay.
I had an Alfred Gardner who we lost last year. He was also my advisor on this, but the piece took me to Parliament 3 times. The timing was impeccable. I could not have asked for a better time. You couldn't have planned it really. So yeah, I had a lot of help from people that actually know the story, know the narrative, and some pushbacks as well. But yeah, it was incredible. I still feel the excitement from the work.
You called and we came. You called and we came. In ships bigger than anything we had seen, driven by a wish, a call to save, to rebuild in the aftermath of war. You called and we came. You called and we came.
Do you want to speak a bit more to it and the inspirations for you?
Yeah, it's, you know, when things just come together and you think it's not serendipitous, there's something definitely been planned around this, because we were working on a production that was to do with a carnival piece, and we had quite a healthy budget for it, and God knows we couldn't get it off the ground. We couldn't get this piece to work. I'd done the research, been to Trinidad, Jamaica, and everything just wouldn't move. And the project didn't happen. That night I went to my bed, obviously very disappointed, and I woke up the next day and I just went, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm meant to do. And I just said, here we go, this is what we're doing. And I look back at that moment and being very clear about the decision. It must have been there all the time. I don't think it was something that I I had to search for. It was the thing that was presented to me. And from there on, I just found, I did a bit of research and tested it with an audience. And of course, it was full of criticism, which is why you go and you do these test beds and that's not right. I mean, Khadijah came back and she was like, Sharon, that's not good enough.
Oh, that's Khadijah.
Khadijah,
Yeah,
Khadijah,
yeah,
him, yeah.
yeah.
She said, that's not good enough. I was like, that's okay. It's just a tester, but I need the feedback. I need to know what's missing. And then from there on, I just took some of the advice, brought in the researchers, my mother, Alfred, various other people, and it just happened.
I'm curious, I want to take you back because you said something unlocked, because it's like, you know, you're looking everywhere else, but the answer is within you. What was the deciding factor? What was the thing that made you know this is going to work now?
I'm not sure if I can
say, okay,
if it was a real thing, but I just woke up the next morning because I needed a production. I was artistic director of Phoenix Dance Theatre at the time, and it was my year to create. I didn't create every year, but it was my year to create, and knowing that something so significant had fallen through for very legitimate reasons, I'm thinking, well, what is the next thing for me to create? And actually, yeah, I think I was blessed with this production. I really was.
You're saying blessed, but also the first thing you said, Khadijah is an ally telling you it's not good enough. I mean, how you deal with that type of criticism. But also when you were seen as, I suppose, and it's come up a lot already in terms of this, the conversations we've had with different artists as part of the series, is about this whole stewardship of it. And that, do you think that how do you then distinguish between what is legitimate criticism and what is just basically fear because it's putting our stories out there?
It's quite a difficult place to put yourself because you become very vulnerable as an artist, always. You're in that position of criticism, whether you like it or not. I think for Windrush, because everybody's got their story, everybody's got a version of it that works for them. So when I was creating this, I had to really be true to what I knew in terms of my relationship with my parents, my relationship with the information and those that were giving me the narrative to work with. It was very closely based on my family. And there's a section in the piece where you see the women with masks on. And we had an argument in the studio about that because there were, the company is mixed. It's got every nationality in the room. And the moment I said, I spoke to my mum and I said, how do I do this? And she said, well, they were faceless and they were grey. That's how she described the women, and she and this is what, and it just, everything seemed to fold into one. And actually where I went to bed that night, this is where I just thought, oh my gosh, I've been guided. I went to bed that night and I woke up the next morning and I started the journey around making the washing line section. And by the end of the day, I knew exactly how it was going to work. So that was a guidance, because if you've not seen it, there'll be an opportunity, I hope, to see it. But it had everything I needed in it. No blacks, no dogs, you know, all of that. And yet it still held its own with these women and the contrast. So there were some things that I didn't need to struggle with, and I didn't need to fight. But for some people, they found that really problematic. And I was like, that's okay. The production is going to suit some and not others. So, you know, my message to you is this. And I had to just kind of leave it at that.
I'm going to come later on to why you do what you do, because already I would imagine for those who are interested in dance, hearing you speak about that professional journey, creative process, it's not for the faint-hearted at all.
It really isn't. It really isn't.
So you grew up a few streets, like I said, you know, from where you were CEO and principal of the Northern School of Contemporary Dance. I want to take you back because it seems like the most important conversations happened in your kitchen. Because unusually for the time, creative movement was on the curriculum of your junior school, isn't it? It wasn't even the secondary school. Junior, was middle school it's called, isn't it? Yeah.
The middle, 9 to 14.
So, Herne Hill's middle school, right?
Yeah.
And which your older sister Dawn, about 2.5 years older than you, she got in there first, right?
Did, yes.
So after your first class, you told your parents you'd be leaving home at 16 to go to London to become a professional dancer. You can see the movie, can't you? Right? And you did. You turned 16 and went, I'm off. So, I mean, excuse me, what part of Jamaica are these parents from? Because I'm like, that was incredibly modern, tolerant, patient of your parents, you know, and the fact Dawn also, Holgate, is a professional principal dancer. I mean, she's had her own trajectory impressively as well. So,
I guess
please explain.
I think maybe there was, because there was 8 of us.
Yes.
It was a real way to keep us busy. And the relationship we had with Nadine Senior, who was the founding principal of the school I now run, she was the trusted individual, the trusted teacher that we had that said, you know, you've got some talent here, you could do this. And of course she was quite instrumental in the growth and development of Phoenix as a company. But at 16 you don't tend to sort of make that shift not quite knowing. It was Nadine that sorted our grants out. It was Nadine that took us to London and found our flat. She was the one that was instrumental in getting us our auditions, and my parents just went along with it. And they're safe, they're doing something constructive, and if there is a real possibility that there's a future, then they weren't going to stop that. So
I'm going to then jump in then just to clarify who Nadine is, because that was one of my, you can see us scrolling my questions further down, because she's such an impressive woman. It's almost like you've taken on the mantle, because we're speaking to you, and I would imagine 20 years ago I'd be speaking to her, you know. And so you're talking about Nadine Senior, who was an amazing ally, and had an important role in your career, like you say, because she taught you. I know she passed, is it 2026? No, sorry, 2016? 2016. But she was part of your dance life from early days. She taught at Herne Hill Middle School. She's passionate about all children having access to movement and dance as a vocational skill. She brought you to London at 16. She founded the Northern School of Contemporary Dance in 1985. I mean, she's done, you know, and it's just be really, really clear. It's the first conservatoire dance school within the public sector, and it's the only conservatoire level higher education dance training provider in England outside of London. So we have a lot to thank Nadine and the school for, to put our dancers out there who would never have thought it was a career that was possible for them. So your family, you're saying yes, you know, all 8 of you. But how did they inspire you? Because the fact that your sister Dawn came back, was dancing around the house and showing you moves, and you were like, I can do that. And then you ended up doing that and saying, I'm going to go and be a professional dancer. There must be something energetically in your home that fostered that or allowed that to breathe. Who was it? What was it? What can you say about? I do
question where the drive comes from, but I think the environment that I grew up in terms of Hare Hills as a school, I mean, both my parents worked, one in, one out, one in, one out, and that's how they grew the family. So I was brought really by my brothers and sisters. My sister came to London at 19 to be a nurse, and she had an amazing career. This is my eldest sister. All my brothers ended up being mechanics. But I won't let them on my car. But they forged their career in that area, and one of my brothers is a musician, so I'm not sure the dance aspect of it, where we would have, that wasn't an internal, that was definitely an external. And I think the environment where we were nurtured, because we, you know, back in the day, probably some of you are far too young to know, we'd be out playing until it was dark, and we were brought up by a community. And it was that community that says, oh, actually, I can see that this is different. You know, it was the whole community that allowed us to be who we became. And, you know, Nadine was instrumental. She was the facilitator. But I do think when you think about the school itself, 44 young people came out of there and entered into the dance world, of which only 4 of the successful ones were women. The rest were men. So she was absolutely doing something that was quite unheard of. And it kind of, it allowed you to branch out, but it built you confidence. We were at festivals, and at the festivals, you know, you're cleaning up with the performances and thinking, actually, there's something that's making me so satisfied in this that I do want to do it as a career. My sister went on to work with solicitors for 2 years whilst she waited for me, and then at 16 and she's 18, plus we said, see ya, we're off. And that was it, cases were packed, and along the way there were opportunities. So at 16, I mean, we just lost an amazing artist the other day, Paul called Henry. And I remember him phoning me up in my first year and just saying, Sharon, we worked with a youth company in London, and we've got a job at the BBC, and it's a dancing job, and the Hot Shoe Show, do you remember that? Would you be interested in being a dancer on that? And I was like, oh, that's really nice. I'm in my first year, by the way, at professional training. And I phoned Nadine, and I said, Nadine, I've got this opportunity to do a job. She was like Marmite. You either loved her or you hated her. And she just said, Sharon, what did you go to London for? And I said, to train as a professional dancer. She says, have you done it yet? I'm like, no. She says, well, you don't need to ask me that question.
Wow.
And it was, yeah. So yeah, there was some guidance, some tough love along the way, because you can get starstruck with various things, but she was really quite clear in how that worked. And obviously, being able to stand on your own 2 feet, then you realise the value of that input. And I see myself now, I am walking in her shoes, big shoes to fill, still working that one out. But I do see myself as a facilitator, as a supporter, as someone who can hold an opportunity for other people to be able to walk forward. So that's what I've taken from Nadine.
I want to talk about contemporary dance itself and how you would describe it, because even though dance is still popular in this country, and obviously it's an exciting, live, almost like a quite rebellious art form, there's still a lot of people who don't understand dance, and especially in black communities. Obviously we've got street dance, which now is getting its own recognition in terms of almost like the contemporary continuum. But how would you describe contemporary dance? Because it is seen as a rule-breaking art form.
It's quite hard to sort of put it into a bracket, because contemporary dance for me allows you to introduce and to be introduced to everything. And they say, well, you can't really do that. Well, actually you can. Contemporary dance, you need a basic training that enables you then to branch out. So what's popular now in terms of the street, the hip hop, the commercial side, you think about that form of expression, and that's included within contemporary dance. As far as I'm concerned, that's part of who we are and what we do. You know, voguing's part of who we are. Historically, culturally, the relevance and the references still form part of the creative process. So I kind of own all of that and take it on board. What I say to the students is nothing is off bounds when you think about how you hold that space and that information that's put into that. And yeah, contemporary dance, you don't have to understand it all. I think it gets a bad press at times when it kind of goes left field a little bit, but I think everyone's enabled to make their own interpretation within contemporary dance. But you know, narrative work like the Windrush, people said, is it a musical? Is it a contemporary piece? Is it a story? It's all of that. Let's just take away some of those letters. It's all of that. And if you see it as a musical, although nobody sings, then that's okay. You can see it as a musical. You can see it as a ballet because it's a narrative work and we're used to seeing ballet. So try not to limit what contemporary dance can do and how much of a message it can portray. I really don't mind, and I don't have to stick to a label, because the form itself allows me to be everywhere.
I think isn't the clue in the hint in the title?
Indeed it is.
I want to come now, because obviously you're a choreographer, you're developing dancers, you're advocating for contemporary dance and inclusion. You just talked about, before we started the interview, about scouting and just coming up from Florence to offer scholarships to dancers in other countries. I mean, this is it's a exciting broad landscape. Who is this person who reminds me of Simone Biles on the right? And looks so young. I mean, you'll see why I say that for some of the photographs. So do you want to speak to this? This is Phoenix, isn't it?
This is Phoenix Dance Theatre, and I was actually a dancer myself. So that's me in the corner there, and my sister is to the right of me in the middle. And 4 women that came out of Herne Hill's school, Pam Johnson and Celine Derrick, we were the only 4 that made a profession out of contemporary dance from Herne Hill's. We danced together. We were, in fact, the job that we got, because in 80, whenever it was, there was a phone call. It was an all-black, all-male company. That's how it started. And I remember just thinking, God, it'd be so wonderful to be part of that company. And I used to watch them through the window, but there was no women, of course. Never did I think in a million years that that would change, that I would even be part of a company that was all male, let alone to be the director of it. So time, you know, evolves, and that's what we did. This was in our very early years together with the 4 women. Leonora Stapleton on the top there, she went to America. She had to leave this country to forge her career. She was incredible. I mean, we lost her, unfortunately. An amazing, amazing dancer from Leeds, a bit of a role model for us. She went to the Contemporary. She was a few years ahead of us. But yeah, she wasn't finding her way here in the UK, went to America and smashed it, and brought this young man back from America. We were working on a Donald Byrd piece, which of course was just dynamic, challenging, everything you needed it to be. And they came to support us with that. So we were just that was a photograph captured in a moment where it was really just telling about how different we were becoming as a company. And that's, yeah, the influence of America there.
All right, the next one. Come on.
This one is actually called Melt.
Ah, right, okay.
This one's called Melt, and it was based on a piece of work I did where I did aerial work as a performer, and I had the opportunity to bring the dancers in the air because I was just so sure they could do it better than I could, which they did. So I got them back in the air, and it was all the aerial strength, but the piece itself was the fire and ice combination. It was a very abstract narrative, but it was the band was from Leeds. We used the music from Wild Beast. I don't know if you've heard them. Something very different. What I like with my work is that it's not always predictable in the kind of works and what I produce, but this is often asked for, but it's quite a bit of a work. It's quite of a challenge to restage this because of the aerial work. Not everybody can do that. And yeah, it's a beautiful piece of work. The dancer, that's the female dancer at the top there, is now a lecturer at my school. And I support the male dancer with his school in the south.
Okay.
This one is Black Waters.
That's such a powerful. There's something about it that looks like one of those. When you think about the Greek tragedies, it just embodies so much. I mean, how do you feel when you see it? Because you always seem to have a different response, even since you looked at it an hour ago to now. You responded differently. What's?
I mean, the piece itself, unfortunately, didn't tour because lockdown came and we had to stop touring. But it was the follow-up after Windrush. I created this after Windrush, and it was a combination of the Kalapani in India, where they were basically the prison. I don't know if you know the story of the prison, which it was in the middle of the sea, and nobody ever escaped. And if they did, they were into the black water. And it's also the ship that came from Africa to the Caribbean. Goodness, it's gone. But it was a combination of the two stories, and basically where they threw cargo into the sea, as opposed to bodies, but they were throwing live bodies into the water. And we researched the narrative to bring these two, that was very similar about the lack of respect for life. They were both thrown into black waters, and this was part of that journey that we took this narrative. It's a piece that really does need to come back because it didn't really get an outing, but a powerful piece. And I worked with 2 choreographers from India.
And I'll be clear, that is you.
That's not me.
Oh right, okay.
That's not me. That's a dancer that looks like a dancer from Gibraltar.
Okay. And the thing is, bringing it back makes sense because the whole debate and argument around reparations, and it's getting a new lease of life now because even more information is coming through about enslavement and the slave trade. The next one. Yeah, that is you now.
That is me.
Great. Okay. I want to be sure.
Yeah,
that looks so Gene Kelly-esque.
Yeah,
you know, with a modern twist on it. So what's this one?
This one was called Covering Ground, and it was by choreographers Shapiro and Smith from America, who came and delivered a number of works with us in the UK. And I was a small dancer, a tiny, small but fiery dancer. And very often I'd be the one that would be thrown around and tossed and all of those things, which was great, but it was, and at this moment when we captured this the image that this came from was that I was the mouse and I was being captured by the cat. I mean, that's the idea, that the whole piece of choreography around this, and Stephen Derrick, who is a martial arts expert as well as a dancer, just managed to portray that with me being the kind of agile, you could do whatever in terms of dance language, and it worked really well. It was just a capture in a photo shoot, this was, and used in the piece eventually, but that was, the piece was really vibrant. It's talked a lot about the company. We were all in vibrant colours. I think Steve was yellow, I was in blue. But if you see those images, you'll see that each one of us had a distinctive character colour, and we played to that within the work.
And that's 1994. Yeah. Wow. And there's one more. Oh, come on. This and that is you at the top.
That is me at the top.
Right. And this is Face Our Own Face.
This is it.
1993. And I just straight away, it's like an album cover. It's like a you know, from the 90s. I mean, if you want to promote contemporary dance, I think you'll get people queuing up just from this photograph. Do you want to speak a bit about this?
Yeah, this was choreographed by one of our fellow, in fact Pam Johnson, who you saw in the photograph earlier, this was one of her works. Pam went on to work for the Arts Council, by the way, which was like, wow. But these frames also were sculptures. We used them, they moved in the space, we danced in, around and through them. It's quite a dangerous piece because we were, again, the energy of Phoenix Dance Company at the time, Dance Company Come Theatre, was the vibrancy of what we presented and how that worked. We were flying through those metal sculptures. I mean, our shins often kind of just through the practice, all of those things that we would just be testing. But because that's where we felt that our creativity could take us, we were fearless. Very, very much so.
But you were at the time when things like dance companies like DV8 came to my head, isn't it? Which was incredibly physical theatre, isn't it? So I can imagine it being incredibly difficult to get insurance now. I mean, because I'm going to come to the fact that you said, I'm not going to perform anymore, only to perform. So what was it? Because you knew from very young you wanted to dance.
I did, yes.
And it's interesting because obviously, I don't know if you knew then what type of dance, right. So what is it about contemporary dance? What does it allow you personally to do?
I think I made work when I was younger, and I was told I would never be a choreographer, by the way. Oh yes.
Against the whole hierarchy thing.
Absolutely. There were people that were making work that was kind of in spaces that you couldn't quite figure out, but I was told that. And it's okay, I'll make what work I need to make. But I was also had a lot of work made on me, which I think was fueling that creativity, to be so expressive and to be able to give to the choreographer. It was a way of expressing, because I think when my dad had said, yeah, you're worth it, you can do this, you always go into that space knowing that you're going to give your best, even with the challenging moments. I remember having a real debate in the studio with Donald Byrd, the American choreographer, and he was asking us, the women at the time, to do a pump walk, and we were like, well, we were doing it, and argument broke out in the studio. Thea Barnes, who was an American rehearsal director, was downstairs. Thea, come upstairs. We've got argument going on. The choreographer keeps asking us to do a pump walk. We're doing a pump walk, and he's like, that's not it. And instead of him saying, that's not it, that's not it. And I was like, well, what is it? But he wouldn't tell us. Just a bit cantankerous, but he wouldn't tell us. And in the end, Thea says, oh, okay. A pump in America is a heel. It's a high heel. And we were walking flat-footed. So of course he wasn't ever going to get what he needed. Lost in translation. After we got through that and a few other differences, I mean, the piece was so dynamic, and you were able to really buy into that journey and become the most amazing dynamic performer. And that curtain call at the end of an evening told you how well you did in your job. And I really value that.
You trained also in classical ballet, and you were also education director at Northern Ballet. So, so the power of black bodies on stage, while breaking down stereotypes, is really important to you. So, I mean, you've said black bodies are different. I'm paraphrasing you here, yeah? So you say we each have a unique body within us, and different ways our bodies move and absorb information. That many of our bodies aren't aesthetically European, so you wouldn't expect us to move in that way. It isn't about making you what you aren't. So unfortunately, as you sort of alluded to already about, oh, great dancer, you're not going to be a choreographer. Unfortunately, this perspective isn't held by many schools. They're still expecting you to mould yourself to the European standard. And also the industry much, the same, which is why you've still got, Ballet Black with Jean Bro. So how do you encourage black and brown dancers to develop ownership of their bodies and craft against this backdrop?
It's really interesting how they say when you can see it, you can be it. And I think we can underestimate what that really means for someone that is looking, that is searching. So 2020, I took the job at the Northern School, and it was the George Floyd was happening and the conversations around it. And I arrived and opened my computer for my first staff meeting, and there were like 35 white faces and just me. And I thought, okay, I'm seeing a something that needs to be changed. There is a problem. But I think they perhaps didn't expect within the first few weeks of me taking the role that I would ask my white staff about what they know about their whiteness, and pose that as a question. Wasn't confrontational, it was I needed to understand, because what you understand, if you're not relaying that in a way that is inclusive, then I have a whole number of students that are not being serviced and not being supported. And it's not because they don't want to support them, they probably don't know how to. And so, as well, with the 35 staff members, I also ended up on a call with 20 plus students of the global majority, saying, I'm so glad you're here, now we can talk to you. And I'm thinking, well, you could have spoken, but there is that bit in the middle where you have members that don't want to necessarily be challenged by it or speak about it because it's not who they are or what they understand, but you have students that are going, but I don't move that way, I don't move with a European aesthetic. How are you going to tell me to make this disappear? And how are you going to tell me not to be rhythmically engaged when that's what it's saying to me physically? So those conversations are happening now. They are absolutely, we brought in tutors specifically to deal with that. But also for the tutors, the classical tutors, we don't have, Leonora was onboarding, we were onboarding Leonora because she was a classical tutor, but we lost her at a real unfortunate time. But for them to be able to say to our global majority students, and in particular our black students, it's okay, your shape is different, your power is placed in different places. I even say to the tutors, don't use a piano today. Why don't you put some music on that sounds like this? Just see what a ballet class sounds like to this piece of music and see what it does to the students in the class. Who rejects it? Who buys into it? Who asks for other questions? What is it that you're able to do? Because it's not wrong, it's different. And if we're able to understand how we can train differently, how we can correct differently, how we can accept difference, then you're going to embrace everyone. So there is a real journey that we're on at the moment. And I have to say, it's not always easy, but the students are telling me, they are absolutely telling me that, Sharon, it would be great if there was more anatomy around our physicality. Like, right, okay, then I'll take that away. We didn't have books in the library that recognised. I mean, you have Alvin Ailey. I'm not talking about Alvin Ailey. I'm talking about the serendipity work, where the books are talking absolutely about the groundwork and the graft and the real kind of behind the scenes and the things that's coming from the African continent. No, it's not about African dance. What is African dance? Let's get understanding how the continents offer you different. Put it in the library. So yeah, we bought all the books. We've got a library now that looks incredible, and the students are using it, and not just the black students. It's everyone. And we have that pedagogy going on across the board. And I'll do that for as long as I'm in that position. But I do worry for other organisations that don't have a me.
Because what are they going to meet? And also it's great because obviously, like you say, your school is very multiracial, and the fact that you're then training white students to understand that so that when if they become choreographers, they're then thinking with a different lens rather than just going and falling into the same old, isn't it? When they
It is that, and it's also about understanding appropriation. They will be asked to do this work, but if they don't know its roots, then it's superficial. And I think they have to respect what that is, so they have to learn it. And, you know, we haven't got the right tutors in there, so they're being taught, but we're also bringing in tutors to help us understand the fundamentals, the development. You know, voguing, I had an argument with someone about voguing who was telling me we had no right to be voguing. I was like, excuse me? I don't think so. Let's just have this conversation. And actually, by the time we finished, you know, them understanding the American aesthetic that was born out of the black need at the time, it was like, oh, okay. It's like, now go away and do the work. Go away and do the homework. I've given you the beginnings. Go and figure that out. But don't do that because you don't own it. And we all need to understand how it arrived in the UK before we can then, I did say exploit what it is, because it's everywhere. But you can't say to me, don't do that, when actually the students need to understand that. So we have to dip our feet in the water. And that's all of them, not just the black students.
Okay, so there's a question I want to ask you, but I'm going to come back to that because I am curious about, especially when you were at Phoenix and just your shows that you've choreographed as well. And touring was a huge part of your life for a long time. What was the reception to you all, particularly when you think about the 90s and so on, and especially when you think also about the advent of music videos and everything else and positioning? So I'm just curious about what your experience was travelling around Europe and maybe the Southeast Asia. How did the work land compared to here?
I mean, we were superstars abroad.
Yeah.
We really were absolute superstars. We had the most envious tours and we met some incredible people. We went to Jamaica several times and performed in the stadium. We couldn't get out the stadium. It was just, I'm reminiscing now in my heart. It was just so warm and incredible. You know, we met prime ministers and presidents that we would never have met if we were, I would say, a non-black dance company. So, you know, we embraced that. We embraced those opportunities. I could never afford to go to some of those countries, you know, on a dancer's salary. So it was great that we were ambassadors. Atlanta at the Olympics, it was us. You know, and it was just some real key moments. Company being in Australia, who would have thought? And quite incredible. The whole of the west coast of America, the east coast of America, it just happened.
And what were they saying to you? Because I know that even in the early noughties, when I went to Washington, part of this media program as an observer, and it was for a range of journalists from diverse backgrounds who were up and coming, and without fail, if they were African American, Native American, whoever, came up to me and said, I did not know black people were in England. and this is just 20 years. So I'm curious then what was going on when you were going to these places and they heard your accent and northern accent, you know, because and how important it is to be seen and to be visible and to leave your localities, isn't it? Because people won't know you exist.
It's like I say, we were absolute. We were seen as special. We were just seen as special because yes, you wouldn't expect. So all of us were classically trained, contemporary trained, jazz trained. We had Tai Chi under our belts. We had a Baroque. We understood a number of forms. So when a choreographer would work on us, they could have whatever they wanted. And then to see that on a black body from the UK in another country, we were almost just unreal. It was this figment of imagination that actually we could do that. And we did it to a very high standard. And when the press would write about us very often, they would say that the dancers are absolutely incredible. They can do everything. The choreography doesn't match their standards. We're like, wow, that's kind of a nice compliment. We didn't agree with it, but it was one of those where you just thought, if that's what they put us on that pedestal, and we were there for quite some time. So I mean, I think, you know, we did get the first class treatment in a lot of spaces. But then, and even for our own city in Leeds, I think people in Leeds saw us as achieving and doing something that's a flagship for them. A lot of the taxi drivers in Leeds now go, yeah, I went to Herne Hills. You were one of the Herne Hills. Oh, I was so proud of you. We made the set. We did the music. This is the program that we did. There's a whole community that was invested in what was happening, and I appreciate that now, being the head of the organisation. That when we have guests that come in, sometimes the taxi drivers come and say, yeah, I'll make sure that your guests are okay because you're going to the Northern School of Gunter. It's like, wow, I've got my own security around the city. It's really wonderful. So we kind of course you can't live on that hype, and you kind of have to understand what it enables you to do. So, you know, the original Phoenix are still out there doing their thing. We've got others that have travelled the world, and my sister and I are still working in education. So you kind of learn to give back and to understand why it's important.
Because you're RJC Dance, and again, you had some Phoenix link with that dance company, and they work with quite young people as well. I mean, and Leeds is seen as the city of dance, isn't it?
It is. We have the title. We definitely have the title. We've been awarded it. Leeds City of Dance. I mean, it's getting harder and harder, but it is part of our DNA as a city. It definitely is. Outside of London, it's Leeds, and we try to keep that alive because it does so much for so many. And London, the reason the school exists is because Nadine was worried about a lot of the students going into London and not surviving, which is what happened. So she said, that's it, I'm going to find a school. So she found a synagogue. Of course she did. Got it sorted. And yeah, now we're going to be celebrating 40 years.
5 years ago, you said that you feel the accountability for racism is at arm's length. I mean, do you feel the same? Do you feel we've gone backwards? I mean, the fact we, like the theatre, we've got less global majority theatres than we did in the 80s. The same with dance. So, and yet we're speaking a so-called sophisticated language now, but yet we've got the rollback in America in terms of EDI and those who are just looking to abandon it here. So not that I feel that that is necessarily a benchmark of what should equate for equality, but yeah, what can you say diplomatically?
Factually, I think it's 2 steps forward and one step back. It still feels as though we continue to be challenged, and we continue to fight for our space. It's a shame because I think there's a good majority of people that feel that we have every right to be in the spaces, and what we contribute is absolutely the right thing. But the whole thing around racism is it plays out in so many ways, and you know, it's hard to sort of sit here and say that, you know, there's no title whatsoever that protects me from racism. And I work with the local police in my area, and they were surprised when I said that I get followed around the shops. They went, you? I was like, yeah, so what tells you any different? I'm a black woman. And very often I'm in a tracksuit or I'm casual. I get followed around the shops. They couldn't believe it. I was like, yeah, but the fact that I've got an MBE, I don't wear that on my forehead. The fact that I'm a deputy lieutenant, that doesn't give me any protection. You have to know, I have to tell you that to know who I am. So if you understand that, you'll begin to understand how the community, you need to understand the community better. Yeah, so racism is a hard one to really, we're not mastering it, we're kind of navigating it, and I think that statement still stands.
Because now, ever since COVID has been a game changer in a lot of different ways, because while dance is still being undermined, you know, or certain genres of dance, we're having a different narrative around health, the body, where how trauma is held within the body, and somatic approaches now, and Qigong is just going through the roof outside of Tai Chi and everything else. So, you know, there is a whole new, not that it's new to you, but now I think there's another avenue, isn't it, in terms of dance, is sustainability and value to our well-being and our connection to self. I think, you know, these things come in cycles, but it just feels like there is much more conversation about movement now, and particularly with the ageing population, particularly with the debate around menopause and women, that they're realising that there are sort of more cost-effective ways of engaging people, whatever your expertise or not is, isn't it? But you're nodding and smiling, so I know. So yeah.
Yeah, if you talk about the aging body, and it's very interesting because I was on stage. When was it? Last December?
Okay, I'll lead in now to that, because around 4 years ago you said I no longer miss performing on stage, and then in December 2023 at Riley Theatre in Leeds, you performed in Ageless, which you choreographed, featuring 6 phenomenal women of colour, aged 50 plus. As part of Museum of Colour's a very British rhythm. I couldn't get to see it, and whoa. Anyway, over to you.
Oh my goodness. I was quite happy to create the work. And again, it was one of those moments where I needed a 6th dancer and there was no one coming forward. So I ended up on the stage. But actually, in a way, I was glad, because my sister, Pam, Celine, we were the 4 first
the original
Phoenix.
Yeah.
It would have been wrong for me not to have been there. And then we had the most recent rehearsal director for Phoenix, never danced with the company but became rehearsal director, so she had a couple of years. And then Bola, who was a dancer and did that stint, but then went into social work and using her art to do that. So it was an absolute scream. But it was more than performance. There was so many things happening in that space. And if I could bottle that, I think NHS would have something so valuable. You know, we're all at that age where our bodies have changed. Not changing, it's changed. And the demands that we were putting on each other were just, we couldn't stop laughing. Just couldn't stop laughing. But we ended up performing, and for those that watched it, the feedback was really, there was a lot of emotions. It triggered a lot of feelings. When you talk about trauma in the body, it was a real place that we went to, which was, again, very interesting. And then we had the opportunity to perform it again in London, which was wonderful, at an award ceremony. Yeah, it was kind of cool, to be fair. But we were like, oh my God, look at us, we're on tour.
We're on tour. This is coming back.
Yeah.
I spoke to my sister, who is an artist. We love dance. I'm going to sort of just say a bit about my experience, which is why the question around the body is so important. I was doing ballet. I don't know, I had this, again, what was available to you it's funny I said about your school, but when I was about 7, 8, but I was 7, 8 going on, unlike you looking so young, I had to walk around with my birth certificate because no one believed I was the age I was, because I was like 5, 7 when I was about 10. Wow. And so, but there was an issue with my body. So all the little girls and then me. And always trying to put my bum in and everything else. So basically I was just made to feel, and I just confronted her. And then I told my mum I don't want to be in this space anymore, so I took up tap. But I had to move school, so I moved into music. And I think I'm saying that story because I think there's a lot of us that would have loved to have been dancers, contemporary, which obviously it covers all the genres, and didn't, and had to deviate or, diverge. And even those you studied with, or you've got your peers who ended up going into institutional work. But my sister, who is a sort of absolutely loved dancing, she's in her 50s. She said, because when I was 16, I saw Alvin in these dance company at the Coliseum in London, all school kids. But this time, coming to see Phoenix Dance Theatre, around 1991 was the first time I and her friends, there's a whole sea of them, bought tickets as an adult to see black people doing contemporary dance. It had all those feelings of the first time, which I've never forgotten. So I think it's really important just for you to, and I said, women in the train, you saw Sharon. And so, this is showing you how much dance changes people's lives, right? And so look at that, right under my nose, we talked about it, but I'm like, all of a sudden the connection. And I want to come now to what you said about how you said dance has changed your life. How?
I think I do question what I would do if I wasn't dancing. I don't really have an answer to that. I've never I had the challenge of having to think about anything else. And I think what's been gifted to me has enabled me to be a conscientious individual. It's helped me to really kind of understand how I want to communicate. And people often say, what's your legacy? What would you want your legacy to be? And of course, it's seeped in dance and the gift of dance can do so much more. My legacy is going to be seeped in the fact that I genuinely believe I am a facilitator of joy in the way that I hope I received it. And enabling others to do what I've done is a gift. So it's made me incredibly mindful, and it tells me that there's more that can be done, that should be done. I believe it will be done. And maybe not in my lifetime, but I think putting those seeds in the ground will enable dance to continue and to fertilise a life, you know, above and beyond what I think is the mechanics of dance. So it has changed my life, and I hope it's also given me insight into the humility of being a human around working with people and offering and making sure that nurturing is embedded within all of that.
I just think you've created a whole new ecosystems and language around dance that is deeply spiritual, very inspiring, and there's no doubt dance will continue to save your life because you're not going anywhere. All right, so thanks so much, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you.